When my son-in-law threw my belongings out after winning the lottery, I didn't scream, I smiled, because he forgot one small detail. The winning ticket was bought with my trust account. As the cameras flashed, I simply whispered, "Check the name again." That's when everything began to unravel. I arrived alone, my shoes crunching lightly on the white gravel drive. The valet line shimmered with gleaming SUVs and freshly waxed sedans. You could smell money in the air, peonies, sunscreen, and that faint metallic tang of wealth. A marble fountain burbled under the Colorado sun while a drone buzzed overhead, capturing the perfect day. I, Marjorie Klein, 68, widowed, retired school principal with a tidy pension and a fully paid townhome, took it all in with the composure of a woman used to being underestimated. I held a flute of champagne. The glass sweated against my palm. My old leather purse, practical, not pretty, hung from my wrist. "Sit up straight," I whispered. "Chin up. You've walked into harder rooms than this." The event coordinator, Tamsin Rhodes, waved me toward the seating area. Her smile looked rehearsed, her eyes carefully blank. "Mrs. Klein, you're in row 12, seat 15, she said. Voice crisp as paper. I followed her gesture and saw the spot, back row near a service gate, almost hidden behind a column. No mother of the bride plaque, just a white card, guest M. Klein. The air felt thinner. I taught entire classrooms without windows that felt less suffocating than that row. Women in pastel hats turned to whisper, their glances sharp enough to slice. One mouthed, "Is that Sierra's mom?" I smiled faintly, smoothing my navy dress and taking a slow breath. They wanted me small, unseen. I could grant them that illusion, temporarily. Then I saw him. Holden Creel, the groom. Expensive suit, perfect teeth, the kind of man who thought kindness was something you gave for sport. He stopped mid-step, looked me over, and whispered just low enough to sting, "Please, don't make a scene. Your poverty will embarrass us." His words were clean as a scalpel. My glass trembled, but I steadied it. "I haven't made a scene in 68 years, I said evenly. His smile twitched, more of a smirk, and he walked off before I could blink. I watched him go, memorizing the words. Words were records, after all. I stayed seated as the ceremony guests arrived. Twice. The cater waiter skipped my row to serve the front. I lifted 2 fingers politely. "Whenever you get a chance." "Sweetheart." He blushed. Poured. Evelyn Creel, the groom's mother, passed by with pearls glittering like ice. "Lovely day," she murmured without meeting my eyes. A friend of Sierra's turned, then turned away, like I was a reflection of something she'd rather forget. I took out my phone, typed a note. Row 12, quote from groom. A drone passed overhead. I lifted my chin, smiling deliberately at the lens. If they planned to crop me out, I would still own my frame. Then Sierra appeared, my daughter, radiant, trembling under the veil. For a heartbeat, her eyes brushed mine. Then she looked away. I knew that flinch. I'd seen it once when she dropped a glass and thought I'd yell. Shame looked the same at 6 or 28. I wanted to wave, to mouth, "I'm proud," but I stayed still. My love didn't need an audience. I thought of the Charleston property I sold to fund her degree, the nights sewing uniforms so she'd look equal beside richer kids. "We will not perform poverty," I had told her. The string quartet began. Somewhere ahead, a guest whispered, "Who put the mother back there?" Someone else replied, "It's complicated." Just then, polished shoes stopped beside me. The air shifted. A tall man in an elegant gray suit took the empty seat at my side. The scent of cedar and mint drifted up as he leaned close. "Act like you're with me," he said gently. I turned. Corbett Linney. Corbett. Older now. Wiser. The same keen eyes I remembered from the scholarship board years ago. His hand rested briefly on mine. Grounding. "Breathe. Count with me." I did. 1 steady inhale. 1 calm exhale. Conversations rippled, heads turned. The waiter reappeared instantly. "Sparkling or still, ma'am?" "Still," I said. Corbett ordered sparkling, nodding approvingly, and laughed softly, the kind of laugh that meant status recognized. I whispered, "Why are you here?" he replied. "Because you shouldn't sit alone. Not today." 2 rows ahead, Holden's shoulders stiffened, that perfect posture faltering. The noise of guests softened as eyes darted between us. I didn't gloat. I just breathed, slower now, cataloging every detail: the usher's sleeve tattoo, the aunt with her phone recording, the florist brushing petals from her apron. Every witness mattered. I repeated his insult silently. "Your poverty will embarrass us. And let it burn into memory." Corbett leaned close again. "When she looks back," he said, "give her the smile you saved for her science fairs." I found it, the gentle, unstoppable one. Sierra looked over her shoulder then, and color drained from her face. The officiant called, "Please rise." The music swelled, somewhere. Holden blinked twice, like a man realizing too late the story had already begun without his permission. When the officiant said, "Please rise," I stayed seated for half a heartbeat. Then Corbett and I stood together. The back row moved differently, slower, heavier, like the air had more to push through. Violin notes floated up, sharp and clean, the scent of lilies mixed with heat and perfume, too sweet for the dry Colorado air. Somewhere near the service path, I heard gravel crunch under an usher's shoe. A pair of guests up front turned. One whispered, "Isn't that Linny from the foundation?" Corbett's name still carried weight, even here among silk ties and self-made fortunes. I kept my shoulders square and murmured, "We're not hiding." He nodded once. My square inch of frame, that was mine to control. Sierra walked down the aisle on Holden's arm. Her dress caught light like a mirror, almost blinding. Halfway through, she saw us. The pause in her step was tiny, but I felt it in my chest. Holden leaned close to her ear, jaw tight, whispering something sharp. The line of his back stiffened, and the message was clear. "Fix this." I didn't flinch. I folded my hands, spine straight. No tears, no pleading. I wasn't auditioning for my own child's affection. Corbett tapped my hand twice, our private cue to stay grounded. He lifted his chin just slightly, scanning the crowd as if this ceremony were another board meeting to dominate. The ache in my heart didn't show on my face. Pain, when refined, becomes power. Sierra looked forward again, eyes shining but unfocused, like someone walking through fog. A teenager a few rows up held her phone high, live streaming for relatives who couldn't attend. The chat feed glowed. "Is that her mom in the back? Why so far?" A cousin snapped a photo of the printed seating chart, zoomed in on my name tag, Guest M. Klein. Within minutes, I heard low murmurs ripple through the crowd. "Back row? Mother? That's strange." A few guests pretended to check their programs, but were really refreshing their phones. Corbett subtly shifted his chair so the camera caught us together. I didn't move or smile. The stillness was enough. A new image replaced the old one. Me. Not banished, but composed beside a man of known standing. I filed away details, the teal dress of the aunt filming, the timestamp on the cousin's live chat. Receipts come in many forms. At the front, a man in a gray suit tilted his head. Recognizing Corbett, I saw a nod exchanged. Mutual awareness. The officiant's tone softened, slipping from brisk to deferential without realizing why. Evelyn Creel's pearls stilled mid-sway. Money recognizes its own kind. "Don't sell your face short," Corbett murmured. "Half of power is frame," I whispered back. "Then let's frame it well." I looked forward, never sideways. Where I looked, others followed. The cater waiter from before appeared, gentler this time. "Still or sparkling?" "Ma'am?" "Still," I said, same as before. Consistency was its own statement. The back row no longer felt like exile. It felt like altitude. Music swelled between vows. Tamsin Rhodes slid along the side aisle, clutching her tablet. A glare bounced off the screen and caught my eye. I read enough before she angled it away. Mother of bride, row 12, out of focus. My pulse stayed steady. Tamsin's face froze when she realized what I'd seen. "Everything all right back here?" she asked. "Perfect," I said, smiling evenly. She left too fast, adjusting her clipboard like armor. I made a mental note. Get proof later, discreetly. Evidence first, outrage later. A gust of wind lifted Sierra's veil. It brushed Holden's lapel mic, and the speakers caught a half sentence. Optics, back there. Fine. Heads turned, puzzled. The sound tech scrambled to adjust controls. I didn't react, only noted the phrase, optics, the same kind of weapon as poverty, both designed to humiliate quietly. Corbett's steady breathing beside me was a reminder. Save the receipts. All of them, Vows continued, voices shaking with sincerity. I let my shoulders soften, counting breaths to the rhythm of the violin. I whispered so low only Corbett could hear. Let them do their lines. He smiled faintly. We're rewriting the stage. When applause came, I clapped just once behind the rest, deliberate, calm. Holden avoided my eyes. Evelyn didn't even try. Tamsin waved for back rows to exit last, but Corbett offered me his arm, and we walked out through the open path. Thank you, Aaron, I said to the usher at the gate. He blinked, surprised I remembered his name. People never forget being seen. We passed the photo lawn, heading for the cocktail terrace. You've got half the front row watching you, Corbett said. Good, I replied. Let them learn who they dismissed. I texted myself one last note. Time, date, mic phrase, tablet detail, documentation wrapped in grace. Immediate family. Please gather at the Willow Arbor for photos. A voice called from the lawn. Heads turned again. The word mother floated, uncertain. Corbett waited, but I didn't. I walked toward the arbor, heels steady on the grass. Sierra's face paled. Holden leaned in, whispering urgently. At the edge of the frame, Tamsin stepped forward, list in hand. Tell me, I said evenly, meeting her eyes, where do you want the mother of the bride? I walked toward the willow arbor, steady as a metronome. The grass was soft under my heels, but the cameras popped like small fireworks. Every flash felt like punctuation in a sentence I hadn't agreed to write. Tamsin stepped forward, clipboard in hand, all honeyed politeness. Immediate family first, please. I met her eyes. I am immediate family. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried. I could feel heads turning, the shift of conversation dying mid-word. I smiled and asked, calm and deliberate, where would you like the mother of the bride? Corbett stopped just behind me, hands in pockets, posture reading authority. A hush settled like dust. The word mother reclaimed space it should never have lost. Tamsin's clipboard trembled just slightly. I saw the list, names neatly printed, sections divided by invisible hierarchies. Bride with parents, it read. Then a separate line lower. M. Klein, after Candids. I tapped the page once. This line, I said softly. Who decided that? Tamsin's lips parted. It's just the photography flow. Mrs. Klein. Jargon couldn't hide the intent. Flow, I repeated, letting the words sit between us like fog. Corbett's tone was easy but firm. Place her where mothers go. The photographer looked at him, then at me, weighing something invisible. Yes, of course, she said finally. And just like that, the frame adjusted. I stepped into the light, back straight, chin level, no apology attached. A woman nearby filmed the scene on her phone. Vertical shot, eyes wide. The wind carried a murmur from Tamsin's lips to her assistant. Bride prefers a clean look up front. Clean look. The phrase hit like grit in the teeth. The phone caught every syllable. I saw the gold glitter case, the pink manicure, details I'd need later. I didn't raise my voice, I just smiled and said clearly, a mother isn't clutter. The photographer cleared her throat. Let's bring Mom next to the bride. The word Mom clicked, echoing through the murmurs. A moment later, people were nodding, some smiling thinly, as if decency had been rediscovered under the leaves. Sierra turned. Smile stretched too tight to last. Her eyes shone, not with joy but with panic. Holden's hand clamped around her arm. I saw the tendons flex. He leaned in, speaking too quietly for the mics this time. I could read his lips. Fix it. I raised my hand and brushed my corsage, grounding myself. I wasn't there to fix anyone. The photographer guided me beside Sierra. "Mother by the bride, please." I held my expression neutral. A calm seashell face. Evelyn Creel stood a few feet away, her pearls motionless, eyes narrowing as though calculation required oxygen. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. The flash went off. I relaxed my shoulders by 1 inch, enough to look natural, not conquered. "You look beautiful," I whispered to Sierra. No bitterness, no tremor. She blinked fast, said, "Thank you," almost inaudible. The photographer chirped. "Lovely, everyone!" I stepped out on my own, not dismissed. I caught Tamsin's sigh of relief and stored it. People show you who they are when they exhale. At the cocktail terrace, a server in a black vest gestured toward a small table by the catering station. "This way, ma'am, reserved for you two." The sign on the linen read vendors. I looked at it, then passed him to a table overlooking the lawn. "We'll take that one," I said. He hesitated. Corbett spoke, his tone like closing a ledger. "She's family." That was all it took. The waiter flushed and nodded. We sat where sightlines were clean, not convenient. Nearby guests took photos. Their screens told new stories before dessert was even plated. I took out my phone and typed a note. Photo list separation. Clean look phrase. 5:58 p.m. Corbett leaned closer. "Dinner's where they'll try again," he murmured. I nodded. "Then dinner's where we'll be ready." I spotted the guest with the glitter phone case. Made a mental note to find her later, politely, to secure the video. "Documentation," I said under my breath. "The quiet woman's armor." A bell chimed from the ballroom. Doors opened wide. Laughter floated out like steam. "Find your name at the escort wall," Tamsin announced brightly. People drifted toward the cards, chatter swelling again. I walked with purpose, stopping at the letter K. There it was. Klein. Marjorie. Table 18. Far corner next to the kitchen swinging door. I pressed my palm against the card, feeling the inked letters under my skin. "Let's see," I said softly. "Who's sitting at tables 1 through 3? The escort wall shimmered under fairy lights, a grid of perfect calligraphy that pretended to be gracious. I traced the rows until I found my name. Klein, Marjorie. Table 18. Guest. The word guest hit harder than the placement. Evelyn Creel was listed as mother of groom, neat, proud, gilded in ink that almost gleamed. I pressed my thumb against my corsage to keep my pulse steady. Corbett leaned close, voice low. "They labeled you wrong on purpose." I said nothing, just lifted my phone, took a photo wide, then close up. "Evidence always starts small." 2 women nearby whispered, "Guest?" And one looked at me with the kind of pity that sours into gossip. At table 18, the chair wobbled like it wanted to leave. The kitchen door sighed every half minute, sending out waves of heat and the faint smell of rosemary butter. I stood, smoothed the front of my dress, and walked toward the 5th table, 1 ring from the head. A waiter hurried after me. "Ma'am, your place is—" "She's the bride's mother," Corbett interrupted smoothly. "Adjust the layout." I smiled at the young man. "Switch 2 cards from here to 18, I suggested. "Balance always matters." He hesitated, then nodded. Within a minute, place cards moved. The sound of rearranging paper felt louder than music. When I sat, the sightlines shifted. It wasn't defiance, it was geometry. At my new seat, the printed program lay beside the charger plate. I traced the words with a fingertip. "Blessing by mother of the bride." For a second, pride flickered like a candle. Then Tamsin appeared, headset tilted, smile fixed. "We're skipping that to keep dinner hot," she said brightly. I tilted my head. "Blessings don't melt butter." Her smile froze. "Timeline drift," she offered. "Bride's preference." I took a photo of the program before she could blink. "Paper remembers," I murmured. "Even when people don't." Pastor Reed approached soon after, pressing both my hands between his. His palms were cool, his expression practiced, kind but tired. Some felt fewer voices would make the evening tidier, he said carefully. I caught the word tidy and almost smiled. Tidy weddings, messy souls. I said quietly. He looked down, guilty. "Your place is ordained. Miss Klein." He squeezed once, a small apology disguised as faith. "That's all I needed to hear," I replied, because I'd already marked him as a witness. I sent Sierra a message under the table. "Would you like me to give the blessing printed in your program?" The 3 dots appeared, paused, and disappeared. A digital heartbeat gone flat. Holden turned his head slightly, scanning. Evelyn whispered to Tamsin, who nodded like a stagehand following a cue. Corbett leaned closer. "If they shut the mic, you stand anyway." I sipped water. "I won't shout," I said, "but I won't vanish." The DJ's voice cut through the clinking of silverware. "Toasts in this order. Maid of honor, best man, father of correction, groom's mother." I stood, not fast, not slow, just enough for chairs to shift around me. Tamsin moved to intercept, headset cord flashing like a warning sign. Corbett angled himself so the camera phones caught it. I spoke in a tone meant for microphones, not tempers. 30 seconds to bless my child." The DJ froze. Then, against his better judgment, or maybe his better self, he nodded. 30 seconds, he said quietly. The room hushed. I kept it simple. "May love work harder than pride." I began. "May this union outlast the noise around it." Then I looked at Sierra. "And may kindness be the loudest thing in this room tonight." The applause started softly, then spread from the middle tables outward, genuine, unprompted. Sierra's eyes glistened, Holden's mouth tightened. Evelyn smiled just enough to prove she still could. As I returned to my seat, the edge of a folio brushed against my charger plate. Tamsin's assistant had dropped it, too rushed to notice. A single page peeked out, an invoice. The heading read, "Final payment received from M. Klein Trust." I slid it back into place and lifted my glass. If my trust paid for this wedding, then the rules at dessert were about to change. I slipped the slim folio under my napkin, pretending to straighten the silverware. Years of being underestimated had trained me in invisible gestures inside. The invoice glared in black ink. Final payment received. M. Klein Revocable Trust. Wired 2 days prior. The note column was clinical. Program adjustments per coordinator. Family split directives. That was their polite way of saying. We rewrote her role. I took photos of every page. Flash off. Metadata saved. Corbett's voice was a murmur near my shoulder. House accounts answer to whoever actually paid. He nodded toward the office door beyond the buffet. I folded my napkin once and stood. Then let's see who owns this silence. The air behind the service hallway was cooler, humming with compressors and the metallic rhythm of trays being stacked. I checked my banking app. The wire confirmation glowed under my name. For Sierra's wedding, per M. Klein. Corbett flagged down the banquet captain. Polite but firm. "We'll need a copy of the vendor packet for payer records." The man hesitated, eyes darting toward the ballroom. Corbett didn't raise his tone, just said, "Colorado law grants the payer right to itemized services." The resistance melted. Resistance. A file folder appeared minutes later, crisp with receipts and printed emails. I marked 3 changes: the blessing cut, the seating demotion, and the missing dedication. Each line was a fingerprint of intent. Buried inside the packet was the thread that explained everything. An email from Tamsin. "Keep mother of the bride peripheral, optics sensitive." Another vendor replied, "If she insists on a mic, route through DJ protocol, no ad-lib." The CC list read like a roll call of compliance. Pastor Reed, DJ, caterer. No objections, just silence. I ran my finger under the date. "This isn't malice," I said quietly. "It's management." Corbett tilted his head. "You're building a case." I smiled faintly. "I'm building sequence. Sequence tells truth." In the corner, Jules, the videographer, waved me over. "Caught something you might want to hear," he whispered, sliding an earbud my way. The clip played faintly. Tamsin's headset. "If she moves toward the mic, kill channel 2. Another voice, "Copy." My voice followed on the recording. 30 seconds of blessing that slipped through before they could mute me. "May kindness be the loudest thing in this room tonight." Jules grinned. "Guess the channel didn't die fast enough." I asked for a copy. He nodded, pulling a memory card from his rig. For you? Always. He scribbled a note on the back of a place card and signed it. Chain of custody. Clean as sunlight. In my purse sat the venue contract, the one I'd signed months ago. A clause I'd nearly forgotten surfaced in my mind. Program adjustments subject to payer's consent when payer couple. I flipped to the page, showed it to Corbett. Tamsin's addendum tried to override it, I said, but she never got my signature. He exhaled through his nose. Then you hold the lever. I found Miss Patel, the venue manager, near the kitchen pass. I'm exercising the payer's consent. I told her evenly. I want one dedication before dessert, and family seating restored to standard dignity. She scanned the line, nodded once. Understood, Miss Klein. Power didn't need to shout. It only needed documentation. By the powder room. Sierra caught me, voice trembling. Mom, did you pay for all this? I studied her face, the makeup, the fear, the small echo of the girl who used to fall asleep on my lap during thunderstorms. I paid for you to be seen. I said, not for me to disappear. She looked down, hands twisting her veil edge. I just wanted peace. I touched her arm gently. Peace isn't silence, baby. It's fairness. Back at the ballroom entrance, I wrote a single page, payer directive, dedication, seating rectification, open mic for blessing if requested. Corbett signed as witness. Miss Patel initialed, time-stamped. I handed it to Tamsin. We'll review post-event, she said, her voice tight. You'll comply pre-dessert. I replied. She smiled, brittle. I texted the DJ a photo of the clause. Seconds later, a reply blinked in. Yes, ma'am. My phone buzzed. A new message popped on a vendor group chat. Peer Evelyn. Pull her channel before cake. 1 beat later. Miss. Patel responded, per pair, channel 2 stays live. I slipped my phone into my purse, smoothing my dress. The cake cart rolled toward the stage. Gold and perfect. I followed, calm as a metronome. If they wanted to mute a mother tonight, they'd learn who paid for the power. The cake cart rolled forward, gold-rimmed plates gleaming under the chandeliers. I walked toward the DJ booth, contract folder in hand, Miss. Patel met me halfway, headset glinting. I showed her the initialed clause, and she nodded, professional, composed. The DJ's eyes darted between Tamsin and me. Across the room, Tamsin dragged her finger across her throat, the universal signal for mute. His hand hovered above the fader. I placed the document flat on his console, one fingertip resting over the words, Payer's Consent Rights. Channel 2 stays live, Corbett said evenly beside me. Miss. Patel's voice came through the comm, crisp as glass. Per contract, execute Payer's 30-second dedication now. Aiden, the groom, smirked from the head table. This isn't amateur hour, he said, lips barely moving. Don't embarrass us. I'd heard that tone before, from teachers, from bosses, from people who thought calm meant weak. It never worked then, and it didn't now. Around us. Guests began to sense something electric. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. A dozen phones lifted, blue screens flickering in the low light like curious fireflies. Sierra looked torn between loyalty and dread, her hand clutching her bouquet tight enough to bruise petals. I took a breath, squared the mic stand by a single inch, and felt the steadiness return to my spine. I spoke clearly, not loud. 30 seconds per contract. The DJ froze, but the feed stayed open. I funded this wedding through the M. Klein Revocable Trust. For one reason. I held up a photo of Sierra at 6 years old, missing a tooth, holding a paper crown she'd made for me, so she would feel celebrated and never alone. The string quartet swelled softly behind me, like it knew the cue. May your home, I said, be kinder than tonight tried to be. I didn't look at anyone directly. I let the words sit. Simple and exact. The kind of sentence no one can argue with because it's already true. Tamsin approached, clipboard at her chest like a shield. We appreciate all contributions. Mrs. Klein, she said brightly. But this was a private, creative decision. I slid the printed emails across the tablecloth next to the silver cake knife. Then why did you write, "Keep the mother peripheral, optics sensitive"? A hush rippled through the front tables. Someone gasped, audible even over the string music. Her face drained, but she tried a smile. Context matters. Corbett leaned in. So does timestamp. I stayed quiet. Paper didn't need my temper to speak for it. It spoke fluently on its own. Jules, the videographer, signaled from the side aisle. He didn't play the clip. We'd agreed that spectacle wasn't power. Instead, he handed me a signed note. Clip preserved. Channel sabotage confirmed. Corbett photographed it. Miss Patel logged it officially. I looked at the crowd and said calmly, "We won't be litigating tonight." That landed heavier than any threat could. People understood. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about record-keeping. Then Sierra stood. She came beside me, hand trembling before settling on my arm. "Mom," she said into the live mic, voice cracking and brave, "thank you for raising me to pay debts with decency." The room erupted. Applause warm, genuine, relieved. Aiden's jaw flexed. He clapped twice, sharp and hollow, then stopped. I returned the mic to its stand. No victory speech, no gloating, just balance restored. I turned to Tamsin. Calm as a courthouse clerk. "Your team will stand down for the next 10 minutes. Cake cutting, no commentary." Miss Patel confirmed. "Understood." 2 venue guards moved subtly closer. "Not to intimidate, just to ensure order," Aiden muttered. "You'll regret this." Corbett answered before I could. "Not as much as interference regrets discovery." I touched Sierra's cheek, soft but firm. "Cut your cake, baby." She smiled through tears, blade poised above the frosting. The knife touched fondant. Then the lights flickered once, twice, and half the ballroom went dark. A metallic crash echoed from the service corridor, followed by a woman's scream. Phones shot up, screens glowing like stars. Someone shouted, "Who touched the panel?" Sierra's bouquet hit the floor. I started forward, every instinct sharp again. If someone had pulled the plug on the lights, maybe they hadn't stopped at the power. The scream sliced through the half-dark. I moved toward the service corridor with Corbett and Miss Patel close behind. The air carried that sharp metallic tang of ozone, burned wiring mixed with adrenaline. A catering tray lay overturned. A young line cook sat clutching his arm. A shallow cut streaked with gravy and fear. "Miss." Patel's voice steadied the moment. "Get him seated. Minor injury." She radioed maintenance to isolate the circuit. Within seconds, the emergency sconces flickered alive, bathing us in a honey-colored half-light. Then came Tamsin, late and gasping. "It's an act of God," she said. "Power surges happen." I looked past her at the breaker panel, cover hanging open, a sticky note that read, "Do not touch. DJ only," typed in her signature font. "Honey," I said quietly, "I've lived through Midwest blizzards. I know the difference between an accident and someone pulling a plug." Corbett photographed the note and time-stamped it. The story had just changed tone. Security arrived fast. Statements were taken in clusters. The DJ, the lighting tech, the trembling line cook, and a junior planner who looked 16. Corbett guided the process like a quiet metronome, one at a time. Facts, not panic. When it was the junior planner's turn, she slipped. She said the mute directive was top priority. The optics list had MK flagged, and Miss Patel's pen paused mid-scribble. "MK?" she asked. "Mother of the bride," I said, calm but cutting. Tamsin stepped forward. "We don't need an interrogation. This is a wedding, not a courtroom." Miss Patel didn't flinch. "No one leaves until incident forms are signed." Then Aiden burst in. "We'll cut the cake in the dark if we have to." Corbett blocked him. Firm as a door. "You'll cut it under policy and light." I looked straight at him, and without temper tantrums. Minutes later, Jules texted me a PDF, a forwarded invoice from Row Creative to Aiden's startup, dated just last week. The line item made my stomach harden. Exclude parent speech, groom family priority shots. I passed my phone to Miss Patel. She printed the file right there in the office. Venue letterhead watermark sealing its weight. Tamsin tried to spin. "That's a brainstorming concept." not a directive. I placed the print beside the earlier emails. An idea that costs money, I said, is no longer a passing thought, it's a decision. The silence that followed was cold and deep. Then my phone vibrated again. Bank alert. Fraud flag on the trust card. 2 charges. Row Creative expedited retainer and DJ override kit rental. Both logged 2 hours before the ceremony. I called the after-hours line on speaker. No, ma'am, that isn't a tip. I told the rep evenly. That's tampering. The banker confirmed token misuse from a stored vendor profile. Miss, Patel's brows rose. Violation of policy, she said. Immediate consequence. I froze the card and requested a fraud report sent to both my email and the venue's records. Miss Patel turned the page of her manual and read the clause aloud. Sabotage or unauthorized system access results in removal and penalty. She called for the duty supervisor. 2 security officers appeared, calm, not dramatic. Row Creative is suspended from the remainder of tonight's program, she announced. The DJ stayed, the tech stayed. Only Tamsin and her assistant were escorted quietly to the side office. Miss, Patel turned to the crowd through the mic. Tone even. Technical review in progress. Thank you for your patience. The hum in the ballroom softened to a murmur. Sierra came toward me, face streaked but resolute. Mom, she whispered, I need you to see this. Her phone glowed with a thread of messages from Tamsin. Keep Mom peripheral. Grooms ask. It's cleaner. Another read. No mother shot at cake. We'll do it tomorrow. She swallowed hard. I didn't want to ruin the day. I brushed her hair back. Truth isn't poison, baby. It's medicine with a taste. Aiden overheard. You're overreacting, he snapped. Sierra lifted her chin. I'm reacting right on time. When we returned to the ballroom, full light had been restored. Miss Patel announced the findings succinctly. Vendor reassigned, system stabilized, no names, no drama, just order. I stood beside Sierra as the DJ resumed the playlist. Aiden reached for the mic, but the DJ's glance told him no. Payer directive still live. Sierra and I cut the cake together. The applause came soft, steady, healing. Then Corbett tapped my shoulder. On his phone, a photo of a binder page on the groom's table. Prenup addendum, groom's family business image rights. Signed tonight. I sent it to my lawyer friend, who replied instantly. If signed under duress, it's voidable. You hold leverage, trust assets tie the images. I didn't smile. I just stored that fact like an ace. Later, on the side balcony, Sierra and I stood in the cool dark. I let them make me small, she whispered. I said, tonight we resized the truth. She nodded, then added, stand with me tomorrow when we meet counsel. I squeezed her hand once. A silent yes. A soft knock interrupted us. Miss Patel stood there, holding an envelope. Planner's written apology, she said quietly. Behind her, a Greenwood Village officer stepped forward. Miss Klein, would you like to make a statement tonight? I looked at Sierra. She nodded once. I opened the envelope. Yes, officer, I said. I'll make a statement, and I'll start with the 30 seconds they tried to steal. The police station was quiet, fluorescent and exact, the kind of light that makes people tell the truth. I sat at the report desk while the officer typed steadily, fingers clacking in rhythm. I handed over the venue's incident forms, Corbett's photos of the breaker panel, and the sticky note with Tamsin's font. My statement was simple and factual. Unauthorized interference with contracted equipment, misuse of payment token, deliberate exclusion of payer. I attached Sierra's text screenshots, the ones showing, keep Mom peripheral. The officer raised his eyebrows once, but didn't comment. When he asked if I was angry, I answered, no, I'm not angry. I'm accurate. He nodded, gave me an incident number, and said the words I've been waiting for all night. You've got this documented. By midnight. I sat across from my attorney friend in a small Denver Tech Center office, the city outside gone to a soft hum. We studied the photo of the prenup addendum, groom's family business image rights. She circled a line in red. Signed under event pressure, that's voidable. Together we drafted a single page, notice of non-consent and rescission warning. It stated that no image, footage, or likeness tied to my trust's assets could be monetized without my approval. I added one sentence at the end. Attempts to erase the payer from record constitute fraud of representation. I signed. The document pinged off to Venue Legal, Row Creative, and the videographer within minutes. "That's your pin," she said, smiling faintly. "Right through their balloon." At 1 o'clock, Miss Patel called. "Venue Legal received your notice," she said. "Our policy forbids any vendor or family from using footage commercially without all primary consent. Since you were pair of record, we're rejecting all licensing requests from the groom's side." Her voice sharpened. "We'll also be issuing damages against Row Creative for breach." I thanked her. "No adjectives in your statement," I said. "Just facts, they weigh more." She laughed quietly. "You're tougher than my legal team." By dawn, counsel sent out the demand to preserve. Every email, every invoice frozen for review. Tamsin's reply came from a personal account. Panicked, rambling about shortcuts everyone takes. I wrote back once. "Standards are written. Shortcuts are whispered. We'll stay with what's written." Corbett texted at the same moment. "Civil filing ready. You want quiet justice or public?" "Quiet," I replied. "Let them feel the silence." I drove back to Ridgewood Estate just after sunrise. The ballroom smelled of wax and coffee. Cleanup crews moved quietly. Miss Patel handed me a small folder, a receipt packet for rentals and deposits paid through my trust, floral arches, lighting rigs, even half the videography fee. I'd built silent equity into the night without bragging. "You funded more than they knew," she said. "I funded what they took for granted." Corbett appeared with a flash drive from the DJ. The pre-ceremony mic test, Aiden's voice. "Caught clean. Your poverty will embarrass us." I slipped it into my purse. "For counsel only," I said. "Not revenge. Record. At Sierra's condo." The coffee was strong and the silence softer. She opened her laptop, fingers steady. "Mom, I'm changing my proxy. You and an independent accountant will co-verify all wedding-related accounts." She paused. "Aiden loses access until this is sorted." I didn't cheer. I just nodded. Proud in the quiet way older women are proud, without ceremony. "This isn't ending a marriage," I told her. "It's starting boundaries." She texted Aiden. "Meet with counsel. No spending until further notice." The read receipt blinked once and vanished. Miss Patel later released a public update. "Technical irregularity resolved. Event concluded safely." No gossip, no spin. I didn't post anything either. Instead, I wrote one line in my journal. "Dignity costs less than spectacle and pays longer." Corbett archived the photos. Counsel logged the reports. And I exhaled for the first time since the toast that wasn't. As the first light broke over Denver, Sierra and I stood on her balcony. The mountains caught the dawn like glass. She whispered, "They tried to shrink you." I smiled. "And they tried to shrink you first." I handed her a copy of the notice we filed. "This isn't revenge, it's repair." She leaned her head on my shoulder. For the first time in months. We breathed in sync. Before I left, I sent one last email to Row Creative. "Cease all use of our names, images, and timelines. Refund due in 10 business days." Then I transferred the remaining video deposit to Sierra's counsel's escrow, ensuring edit rights stayed in her hands. I made one final call to Miss Patel to set up a staff wellness fund under my trust for the people who did their jobs, I said, without applause. At 8 sharp, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, Aiden, alone, holding a manila folder. His voice through the door was small but clear. I read the notice. "I need to talk without the cameras." I looked at Sierra. She nodded once. I turned the deadbolt. "If it's the truth in your hands," I said, opening the door, "it can come inside." Aiden stepped inside, eyes hollow, folder trembling in his hands. "You don't know what they made me sign," he whispered. The morning light caught his face, half guilt, half plea. I felt the air shift again, the kind that precedes truth or another betrayal. "What's inside that folder?"